And what he says is that there's two aspects of counter economics. First, there's the creation of local production facilities which bypass state regulations. So you can think like a 3D printer or a blockchain miner would be great examples of a local production facility that bypasses a state regulation. So that's the first part. The second part of counter economics, according to Per Byland, is just peer-to-peer voluntary exchange. It's just trading with your friends and family, your neighbors in a voluntary fashion. And if you can combine those two aspects of counter economics, it's a very powerful thing. There's very little the state can do to stop it at that point.
I'm moving house today. It's been 2 years, 8 months and 28 days, and I've got to say that as I step off the bus for what could be the last time spent as sitting in your bus, supermarket queues, etc. And I have to say though, it's only today that I'm glad to be leaving. I really will miss the when Santa.
Listening to truthconduit.com with Chris Macmillan.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So,
yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Macmillan. This is another episode of truthconduit.com, and I'm here with a very popular guy. His name is Sal the Agorist. So that's how you might know him. His name is Sal Mayweather. I've been following him for many years. I have saved so many of your memes. You're one of the funniest guys out there, very clever, very knife cutting. And then I discovered you further. I didn't realize you have your own podcast. And mainly it was what really put you on my radar was when you started hanging out with the Unloose the Goose podcast. So you start talking about something I'm very interested in, 3D printing. And I wanted to talk to you about that because I've been doing a series on solutions. Now, it's interesting. One thing you've always said, there are 3 things that you've got to do, okay? Grow your own food, be your own banker, and be a 3D printer. Have your own 3D printer. So I brought something for you. I wanted to show you. First, I want to start off that I do have that whole life insurance where you are your own banker. It's fantastic. Anyone listening, I did a previous episode on that with Lisa Manfredi. She does courses and talks on it in the autonomy group. And that I will refer you back to that episode to find out about that. Now, grow your own food. Sal, I brought something to show you. So I thought I would show off a little bit. See, got my own jalapenos here.
Nice. Very cool.
Jalapenos. Got my green beans. Yep, this is all from the springtime. Now, this is bone broth, homemade bone broth, beef bone broth.
Very cool.
Here's my favorite, black-eyed peas. Yeah.
Nice.
And, of course, everybody has a collection of these. So, my problem is the third part of your 3-part what was it? Your 3-part rule of life. Yeah. 3D printing. So I don't know. I thought we would talk. I don't want to jump right into 3D printing. I wanted to ask you, for anyone listening who doesn't know about agorism, or some people say agorism. Most people will, but there's a slight chance because I really want to try to get through as many people as possible. I don't want people listening to this nodding their head with their eyes glazed over, not knowing what agorism is. So as Jack Spirko says, I love it. He says, you don't become an agorist. You only come to realize you already are one. One of my favorite quotes. So anyone listening, what is it and how did you come to learn about it?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. So I think, to me, agorism is just really the use of free market economics to subvert or undermine the whole state apparatus. It's, any sort of peaceful voluntary exchange is part of the counter economy, and that is that is agorism. So really, it's just like I said, it's any sort of voluntary exchange qualifies as counter economics. You can go a little bit deeper, though, and you can sort of define it as, like I said, state subversion or undermining of state authority by use of economics. Any one of those sort of definitions suffice. And I really, it's perhaps best defined by looking at examples of it, like, the ones that you just mentioned and a few others out there that I'm sure people are familiar with, Bitcoin and stuff. That is probably an equally justified way of defining it.
It's basically the black and the gray market, all of that. If I pay somebody to mow my lawn, I pay them cash. That's an example of agorism.
Yeah, absolutely. Black market, people think that agorism is really just, people standing on the corner selling dope to kids and stuff like that. That's not really what we're talking about here. I mean, any sort of peaceful exchange is, of course, part of that, but it's much more about creating a free society rather than degeneracy.
Yeah, not being part of the system, disconnecting yourself from as many attachments and dependencies to the system that's out there that's working so incessantly against us right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can break it down even further, really. There's an economist at Oklahoma State, Per Byland, who he really breaks it down into two distinct strategies that he calls the vertical and the horizontal strategy. And essentially, this is a pretty decent theory that I like and that I use. And this comes from a paper that he wrote for LouRockwell.com probably about 15 years ago now, quite a while ago. And what he says is that there's two aspects of counter-economics. First, there's the creation of local production facilities which bypass state regulations. So you can think like a 3D printer or a blockchain miner would be great examples of a local production facility that bypasses a state regulation. So that's the first part. The second part of counter-economics, according to Per Byland, is just peer-to-peer voluntary exchange. It's just trading with your friends and family, your neighbors in a voluntary fashion. And if you can combine those two aspects of counter-economics, it's a very powerful thing. There's very little the state can do to stop it at that point. And for any listeners out there who might doubt what I'm saying, check out Google Nalevo, Nalevo, which is what the Russians called it. That's how they got rid of the Soviets. Or you can also Google Satya, which is how the Indians got rid of the Brits. And
say that. Sorry, counter-economics. Say that second one again.
So that's Satyagraha.
How do you spell that?
It's Satyagraha, and that's a philosophy developed by Gandhi. And really, what Gandhi did was, it was really brilliant, actually, if you think about it. He was able to bring the British Empire to its knees. The strongest empire of all time in all of human history was brought to their knees without ever raising a fist. And he did it by using counter-economics. And I won't ruin the story or go into that at length, but there's a great movie about it if your listeners are interested in it.
I believe it was starring Ben Kingsley?
Kingsley, yes.
Yeah, Ben Kingsley.
Great movie.
I actually went to a wrap-up party for a movie that he was a star in back in what year was it? About 12 years ago when I was living in Belfast. They were filming a movie that he was in. And I was in the bar. I was a bartender, and the crew would come over every day for drinks after they'd been filming all day. There was this big facility. None of the stars, just like the Carpenters and all that. So they invited me to the wrap-up party. I built a rapport with them. And cool. Rose McGowan was in the film as well as Jim Sturgis. None of them, of course, were at the wrap-up party. It was all the other side actors. But we still had a great time. But my wife and I were kind of excited. Oh, maybe Ben Kingsley will be here.
Still cool to attend.
Not to get too sidetracked. One more note on agorism. How did you come to learn about it? What are some of the main resources for agorism?
Yeah. So I guess in terms of like books and philosophy, I started by learning economics. I would really watch a lot of YouTube videos from Walter Block and Peter Schiff, and I learned about how these guys called the 2008 housing crisis to the T, and I was really blown away by it. So I did more research, and I was sort of hesitant to pick up a Murray Rothbard book because I didn't want to be one of those wacky anarchists. And long story short, I ended up making my way to Rothbard. and it was really all downhill from there. Once I had read Rothbard, I was, a radical anarchist, but then I came across Konkin, Samuel Edward Konkin III, and I was really blown away by the logical consistency of the theory that he sort of ties all the loose ends together of Rothbardian theory. And that to me was really, really eye-opening, how it was almost like, in chemistry or biology, you wouldn't stand for a theory that's not logically consistent. And I always felt like in the social sciences and in political science and economics, we always had inconsistencies. But I think Konkin sort of smoothed them out. And when I first discovered him, I was able to spot that immediately. And it was really sort of an eye-opening experience.
Yeah, it was James Corbett that I give credit to on one of his Solutions podcasts called The First Time I'd Ever Seen the Word, Agorism. And he referenced Samuel Konkin III and it was I think the piece was about Samuel Konkin III and led to that. Well, Sal, what about 3D printing then? How can 3D printing be leveraged by the free folk beyond the wall nowadays, moving forward for the situation now and what's to come?
Right. So, going back to what we spoke about counter economics and how the first aspect of counter economics is a local production facility. Well, like I said, there's no better example of a local production facility than a 3D printer. It's literally is having a factory on your desk. And I think that's a really powerful thing, because if we can put a 3D printer into every home, then all of these bad laws become bad suggestions at that point, right? A lot of people now, because of Biden and Harris, are talking about buybacks and confiscations and stuff like that. And are we going to shoot it out? And are we going to have a shootout? And if they come for my guns, I'm taking a stand. We Agorists don't really do that. They can come and take our guns, because by the time they're done sweeping my neighborhood, I'll have 15 more created. It really is, especially in terms of, it's one thing to have a 3D printer in a place like Texas or Florida where guns are easily accessible, but it's another to have a 3D printer in a place like New York or New Jersey or Europe or China with the CCP, or Hong Kong where they're being oppressed, or Venezuela where they're dealing with real life oppression after having been disarmed. So I think, like I said, I think it's one of the most important, powerful things people can do in terms of counter economics to free themselves. It really does bring an end to the gun control debate, thank God. And there's a lot of history behind how the Agorists ended the gun control debate. But if you can get a 3D printer into your home, then those laws don't really apply to you anymore. And I think that's a very powerful thing.
Cool. I want to ask you about KYC, but first I've got a question about, this is like a level 101 dumb question, because I've never had a 3D printer before. The material that you use to actually print something, it's some kind of plastic. What is it? And does it come there? Are there variations of it? What's up with that?
Right. Yeah. So there's different, it's essentially all plastics, but there's different types of plastics that you can use and you can print with. The two main plastics that we use are PLA and ABS. Those are your more common plastics. You can buy alloyed plastics, PLA mix or ABS, either one mixed with carbon fiber or marble or copper or bronze or sand or any sort of alloy that you can dream of, they make. The other sort of 3D printing that I've been really getting involved with lately is resin printing. It's sort of a newer form of 3D printing, where you use actually a liquid resin, which is a different kind of plastic altogether. And like I said, there's FDM printing, which is your traditional printing that everybody thinks of when I say 3D printing, right? A hot metal nozzle extruding plastic one layer at a time. And then there's the other sort of 3D printing, which is resin printing, and that just takes a vat of liquid resin, and it will use a UV light or some other light, like a laser or like a video projector sort of light, and it will harden, or it'll cure one layer of resin at a time, then it'll move to the next layer, and so on and so forth. So there's two different types. They all use plastic, but there are a variety of different plastics that you can use. For people who are interested in making that require rigidity or durability, I would recommend using Zytel's glass-filled nylon for FDM machines. This is some pretty strong stuff, and it's not going to break under pressure. And for resin printing, I'd recommend checking out blue resin, which is some pretty tough stuff.
Sorry, Sal, you cut off just for a second. What do you recommend for the resin? That last part.
So yeah, so with resin printing, there's a sort of resin called Soraya. The brand is Soraya Tech, and the specific resin I'm speaking about is called Blue, BLU, and that is some really strong stuff. There's some people who've made all kinds of fun stuff out of Soraya Blue. So if you're into resin printing, check that stuff.
Yeah, cool. A lot of the things you're saying are over my head. I'm back.
You there?
Yeah.
No. You're back. Okay, cool.
Sorry about that. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So a lot of the things that you said are over my head, of course, but assuming at one point in the future, I'm going to get a 3D printer from you once I start learning it. And of course, anyone listening who knows 3D printing, this is some really good, these are really some really good suggestions. So, okay. I've heard of these machines that you can, homemade machines you can make to recycle your own plastic at the house and kind of make them into this material. Is that actually viable to do that and use that recycled plastic from your own trash and use them in the printing, in the 3D printers?
You can. I'm not that familiar with those machines. I've never used them. I've heard of them. I know people who have them, but I've never went down that road. The filament itself and the resins aren't necessarily cost prohibitive. Depending on of course, it depends on what you want to get. If you want a carbon fiber or something like that, is a little bit more expensive. You can get a basic roll of ABS or PLA for under $50, under $40. So, and a bottle of resin is even cheaper. So it's not really the sort of thing where you're going to break the bank going. But if you have like a sort of machine shop and an industrial operation going, then yeah, that might be something you would want to consider investing in.
Yeah, cool. It's something that's always been on one of my, pending projects. I just think that would be so empowering to make your own machine and be able to, because what is the cost of the material for the 3D printers? Is it pretty pricey? Like if you were to compare, say you went to Dollar General and bought a bottle opener, for example, compared to you printing it yourself, how would that work out price wise?
You would definitely be saving money. It would be by printing it yourself, you would be saving yourself money. It gets a little cost prohibitive when you start making things that need strength and rigidity to them, like that glass filled nylon I was telling you about. That stuff can get a little pricey. I think that's like $100 a roll. But if you can make, what does a Glock frame go for nowadays? About what, $200-$300, something like that. If you can make 100 of them or 50 of them, you can see how well worth it is in the long run. Just a few of them, and the machines are even just 1 or 2 Glock frames, and the machine has already paid itself off.
And do you have to order them from the certain companies, or can you like go to any hardware store, or a mix, maybe a bit of somewhere in between?
You're talking about a 3D printer or the parts for a Glock?
No, to get the plastic material to.
The filaments. Yeah. Well, I sell the filaments. You can get them from me at 3D Printer Go Burr, BRRR.com. We don't sell the Zytel glass-filled nylon. You'd have to go to, I believe DuPont sells that. I think if you go to their website, it's kind of hard to find.
Oh,
but
man, like I don't want to buy from them.
Well, I know. Well, you know what? If you're planning on printing things that require strength and rigidity, then that's probably one of your better options.
Yeah. I've even heard stories of people printing 3D printers with 3D printers.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a guy out there who has, this sounds crazy, but it's true. He's 3D printed a 3D printer with a 3D printing pen.
That's crazy, man.
So he literally by hand would design a couple supports and put it up, and he made the whole printer like this. I mean, if you really think about it, once we have the ability to do this, the whole operation, the whole scam of the state comes crumbling down, right? If we can make a gun that easily, then who are they to tell anyone that they can or cannot have something in their house or on their person? It becomes very difficult for them to enforce these laws.
Yeah. And I mean, I just want to build my own chess set, man.
Same here, right? I don't make guns.
Yeah.
I don't know what a gun is.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah.
What's the deal with KYC? If I like any normal process of buying a 3D printer, is that required now for all 3D printers? WTF, man.
Right. So KYC just refers to know your customer laws. KYC is an identity verification process that the state forces financial institutions to put their customers through. This way they can say, oh, Joe Schmo bought a pound of heroin last week on his debit card. Let's go arrest him. That's why, there's a record for all these things. And that's where KYC comes in. That's why when you open up a bank account, you have to show them, your license or your social security card and all kinds of stuff, so they know who you are and they could, prohibit and censor your transactions. By using cryptocurrency, we're able to avoid KYC laws altogether and sort of make an end run around them. And with 3D printers, I sort of noticed that there really wasn't anybody that I knew of accepting cryptocurrency in exchange for these printers. So every 3D printer purchased in all of the world there was a paper trail connecting the individual back to that machine. That can be very dangerous for agorists and counter economists. So I wanted to create a way that they could acquire these printers without leaving that paper trail, without abiding by the state's censors. So I figured, hey, I like Bitcoin. I prefer Bitcoin to fiat currency, right? It's all I use. So I might as well accept that in exchange for 3D printers. And that was sort of the birth of 3dprintergoburr.com. And I've sort of been vindicated because I'd say at least half, if not more, of all of our sales have come through in cryptocurrency. So hopefully we can just, satisfy a demand in the market is all.
Yeah. I remember hearing you talking about that. It was one of the earlier episodes on Unloose the Goose. And I said, that is what I want to do. I know KYC because I had to go through it I invested in some cryptocurrency that required that. I'm still happy with how that, what I'm doing because it wasn't that much and I didn't know what I was doing, but that was how I learned. I didn't realize what KYC was. And then when you were talking about it, had I not already been through that process, I thought, well, that's very, very interesting. And so, and I made a note. I said, yeah, when I get around to getting my 3D printer, I'm definitely going to go to Sal and see what he's got. So,
well, that was the whole point. So not to interrupt, but that was the whole point of Bitcoin, the whole white paper of if you read Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper for Bitcoin, the whole first page is about how we can now make an end run around these KYC and anti-money laundering laws. So, as an agorist, everywhere I look, I'm thinking to myself, is anybody accepting Bitcoin for that? Or what would people want to purchase that they wouldn't want a paper trail of? And then I try to create some sort of e-commerce solution for that using cryptocurrency.
Just out of curiosity, what else out there that do you have to go through the KYC process? Like normal thing. I didn't realize 3D printers, what else?
Well, it's not that you go through a special process when you purchase a 3D printer. It's just that whenever you use your bank or debit card or PayPal or Visa or Cash App or anything like that, you're using a KYC'd payment platform, right? So any purchase you make using that payment processor, there's a paper trail of. That's not the case with Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, Litecoin, stuff like that, Dash, Monero. So that's why I try to, just by the mere act of accepting cryptocurrencies in exchange for goods and services, we've eliminated all KYC from the process entirely.
Yeah, excellent. And I was listening to a previous interview you did. You mentioned that you're a big fan of Bitcoin Cash as opposed to Bitcoin. What are the advantages? Smaller, it's easier to work with, or what?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So Bitcoin is great, but when the price gets really high, the network gets very congested. So uh, miners, everybody, as more people get drawn into the Bitcoin network, there's more people transacting with Bitcoin, which means that there's more transactions for miners to confirm. And if there's only X amount of miners in the network, well, they sort of get bogged down with all of this work of confirming the transactions. So with Bitcoin Cash, the block size is a little bit higher. It's a little bit bigger. So it decongest the network a lot, which allows for transactions to be much quicker and much cheaper. So with Bitcoin Cash, they're basically instant and they're basically free. A couple of weeks ago, I was fulfilling an order with one of my suppliers in China for 3 printers, and I had to move about $4,000 in Bitcoin BTC, and there was about an 80 something dollar fee just to make that transaction. So I did the same transaction with Bitcoin Cash and paid, not even, I don't think it was even a full penny at that point. So it
Wow.
just goes to yeah, exactly. And to me, what's important to me is the way when I look at the state of liberty and government, the biggest threat to us is the Federal Reserve, right? If it wasn't for the Federal Reserve, they wouldn't be able to get away with half of what they get away with. So to disintermediate the Fed, we need to have a more efficient medium of exchange. And you're not going to get that with BTC. And, it doesn't cost you something when you go to the retail store. You don't have to pay to make that transaction. You only have to pay for the goods and services. That's how it should be with any medium of exchange. So that's why I promote Bitcoin Cash and Dash and Monero rather than Bitcoin BTC.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of Bitcoin. I have a tiny bit of Bitcoin Cash, a little bit of Litecoin, Ethereum, for no particular reason. I don't know what I'm doing, but I do know I do. It's all about. I've got a bit of everything.
Right.
I do remember when Bitcoin Cash came out, and everyone was pretty excited about it. And at one point, I had quite a bit of Dogecoin, and I know that's really good for the small
Yeah.
transactions.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Really, anything that's not sort of anything any blockchain that can scale and sort of move from the small phase of just a few people using the currency to the next phase of a larger, wider market. Any currency that can do that is an efficient medium of exchange.
You talked about something that really just made me sit up my chair, and I thought this. Now I've as a counter economic looking at counter economic solutions. I'm part of like the Freedom Cell network, and I've got a good little group, and we're always looking at ways to trade and barter and skill share, mutual aid, things like that. But something you said was tokenization. What is it, and why is it so important?
Yeah, so tokenization, I think, is really going to be the future. Not even of just agorism counter economics, but the future of the world in general. Um, a token is really just a digital representation of ownership that exists on a blockchain ledger. It's sort of anybody can make one for any particular reason. Um, I think the true counter economic power of tokenization is because it comes from the tokenization of securities and assets. So now, let's say you own a company, you have company A, maybe you have a string of coffee shops, right? And you're growing and you're ready to expand and you need access to more capital. So normally what you would do is you would list your company on a publicly traded exchange like NASDAQ or the Dow Jones. People would buy shares and you could then use that capital for whatever reasons you wanted. But to do that, you need for people to invest in your company to buy shares, they have to go through a FINRA registered broker, right? If you want to be a registered broker approved by FINRA, you have to go through this registration process imposed by the SEC. So essentially what they've done, if you think about it, is they've cartelized the brokerage industry for securities and assets by making brokers or potential brokers go through this lengthy and expensive registration process. They're able to limit and cut down on the supply of brokers. That sort of restricts the amount of capital available to innovators and entrepreneurs, and it sort of holds back the economy at large. So one way that we Agorists are going to stop this is by tokenizing securities and assets instead. So now you take that string of coffee shops that you own, and now let's just say it's worth $100,000. I'm just an easy number. And you can create now 100,000 tokens on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, for example, using simple ledger protocol tokens, or on Ethereum using ERC20 tokens. The point is you create, let's say 100,000 tokens. Now you can sell those tokens sell them yourself and raise that capital yourself. And you're in control of that offering, right? There's no FINRA broker, there's no SEC registration process, there's no overseers or anything like that. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. And I think that when we do that, it's not a matter of when we do it. It's inevitable, right? It's inevitable. It's just good economics. The market will incentivize entrepreneurs to do this naturally. Bob Greifeld, who was the former CEO of NASDAQ, said that in 5 years, he goes, right now, everything can be tokenized. But in 5 years, all stocks and bonds will be tokenized. And I think I would take it even a step further than that. I would say that the microphone and the flag behind me, the chair that I'm sitting on, the desk, everything will be tokenized, because why not? Why not? Why wouldn't someone want access to additional capital? So I really believe that the future is tokenization. And I think that another aspect of that is that, the tokens exist on a pre-existing blockchain. So in other words, if you wanted to tokenize your business, and you would do it on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain, for example. Well, once that's done, that increases the demand for the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. And I think that we're going to see a sort of Tocambrian explosion, different uses for tokens that we haven't even thought of yet. And there's a number of use cases that would blow people's minds, but all of that will increase the demand, and that will help drive mass adoption. As a quick little aside, John McAfee was telling me about a Picasso that was tokenized, and you can actually own a piece of a Picasso. If you can't afford a whole Picasso, well, now you can own just one particular share in one. I think that's pretty cool, and I think we're likely to see more of that, especially in terms of autonomous organizations. Now let's say we could maybe like 5 or 10 of us could pitch in and buy a car, one of those Teslas, and create our own taxi company and never have to do anything. And you could even use smart contracts and multi-signature coins, and you can make it so that the whole process is automated. It also fits in really well with the Internet of Things and stuff like that. So, I mean, really the potential is sort of boundless in terms of tokenization, but I think it's really early, and I think the people who get in on it now are really, it's like kind of like getting involved with Microsoft or Dell in 1990.
And would you need a business to token? I mean, you could tokenize anything, couldn't you?
Yeah, you don't even need to tokenize a real asset. So when I first started messing around with tokenization, I created Konkin coin. I think I created like 5 million Konkin coin, and I would just send them around to friends just for fun to get the hang of it. And it works great. It works great.
What's coming to mind is using say a small group like a Freedom Cell network, a group of families, 6 or 7 of them that trade and barter and hang out and do homeschooling things together. Maybe they could create their own. I want to say their own token system.
Yeah,
but how would that
absolutely
be from a currency? This is where it's not clear. Is it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Well, they could use a regular cryptocurrency that might be more appropriate for that particular use case. But if they were going to do something where there was some sort of reward involved, or certain responsibilities need to be meted out, or
like
shares
when it came to mutual aid, like skill sharing, perhaps that is where that would kick in more.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that would be a good application. There's also another aspect of all this is non-fungible tokens, NFT tokens, which you can basically essentially differentiate between 2 of the exact same tokens. So I could create a set of, let's say I created a set of 100 different tokens, right? But they all belong to set A. and they can all be representations of something different. So, for example, we can make a Super Bowl pool. You ever have those Super Bowl pools where there's 100 boxes? You could do something like that using NFT tokens. And every token, let's say we make 100 tokens, each one has a particular score attached to it. And then the winner of the final score would have an automatic payout vis-a-vis a smart contract. And, maybe a little bit goes to the house, and, essentially there would be no potential for fraud or any funny business whatsoever.
Definitely something for us at Free Folk Beyond the Wall to look into is tokenization.
Yeah,
absolutely.
A great resource in all this. There's a couple good resources. I wrote an article for newlibertarian.io a while back, maybe last year, called A Blueprint to Defeat the SEC, I think it was called. And also Patrick Byrne gave a great talk on this it's on YouTube. It's called Building a Tech Stack for the Future, I believe. So those are two great resources. And if anybody out there wants to create their own token, you can do so in moments over at mint.bitcoin.com. So check that out. And you can do that on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain.
I'm definitely going to include everything that we've mentioned in the links to this chat. Definitely. I've had a little chat with John McAfee myself. I talked to him last January. Yeah, he's quite a character.
he's a wild dude, John.
Yeah, he's on a long holiday in Spain, last I heard. But yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
A bit off topic, but what's up with your profile pic, man? You have a certain
Does
image
it look
out
like
there.
Me?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, who is that? That's Mac Dre. He is a Bay Area rapper from the underground scene in the 90s. He was shot and killed in like 2004, but he was always one of my favorite rappers, especially like being from the underground rap scene. I've always been a fan of his, so I thought it was a pretty cool picture. And when I started my social media accounts, that was my profile picture, so I just never changed it. And it's been like that since day one. So it's sort of become one with my brand. So I don't want to change it at this point.
Yeah, cool. What are your current projects then? What's going on with you? You've got your podcast, Unloose the Goose. You've got your 3D business. What all do you have going on right now?
Oh man, we've got everything going on over here. So we've got 3D Printer Go Burr, where it's a subsidiary company of an umbrella company that I started called Agoristics. And the goal at Agoristics is to enable the mass adoption of cryptocurrencies. And 3D Printer Go Burr is sort of one project from Agoristics to do that. And like I said, it's just to enable people to buy and sell, to buy 3D printers and supplies for cryptocurrency.
Sorry to interrupt, Sal, but for anyone who's not going to look at the show notes, just listening, how do you spell that? 3D Printer Go, B-U-R?
B-R-R-R, that's 3Rs.com.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So we've got that. I've got a couple podcasts. I've got my own podcast, The Agora, which I do whenever I feel like it. It's come down to about every couple of weeks at this point. Unloose the Goose, we do every Wednesday. That alternates from 5 to 6:30, and the next week we do 9 to 10:30 Eastern time, just so everybody can get as many people available. Some people are working and stuff like that. Other than that, I've got some other projects at Agoristics that we're working on. We're going to use NFT tokens to create a sort of political death pool in the same vein that we were speaking about football with. But we're working on all kinds of stuff. Eventually, I'm going to get a book out about agorism and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, cool. What's the death pool about? What do you mean? Betting on who dies, or? Yeah,
so the idea with the death pool would be to create 100 NFT tokens, SLP tokens on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. Each token would represent an elderly politician, something like Joe Biden, the Ayatollah, Queen Elizabeth, someone like that. And everybody could buy a token. We'll sell 100 tokens for the same price. And whoever has the winning token, whichever parasite croaks first, will get the
Kissinger,
payout.
Man.
Yeah, exactly.
God, how old would he be now? Jesus.
If I tell you what, if Kissinger died and I won, I would donate the money because it would be such a great day. But yeah, that's the plan. I've had a hell of a time finding some SLP devs to work with, but it is a project that we have in the works here.
What are your most pending challenges right now? What's going on? What are your current challenges? What do you got?
Well, we're trying to expand at 3D Printer Go Burr. I'd like to. There's a big agorist scene in Argentina and Brazil, and it's very difficult to get 3D printers down there. Just to ship anything down there is very expensive. So we are working on maybe creating a fulfillment center in South America, but we're not there yet. But that is a plan that I hope to accomplish in 2021 by the latest. So I think if we can do that, it's not just the American government that we have to worry about, right? It's not just people in this country who are being oppressed. In fact, compared to most other places in the world, we're not doing too bad. But there are a lot of people in the world who face much more severe oppression, and I'd like to get 3D printers into their hands to the best of my ability. So that's something that's been on my to-do list for a while now.
Yeah, cool. And didn't you just move? You got the heck out of the city, didn't you?
Yeah. I had to get out of the Northeast. It was sort of martial law, lockdown. There was no reason to stay. You know, a year ago, 2 years ago, you could justify the high cost of living with every night we're out at a new bar in Manhattan for some Bitcoin meetup or a 3D printing convention, or there's something going on, right? In New York City, there's always something to do. But that's all dead. That's done. The city's gone. New Jersey is just, they call it the armpit of America for a reason. So
yeah,
once it really went to hell, I made the move. I came down here, and I'll tell you, it's been one of the better decisions I've made. There's no income tax. I don't have to worry about. New Jersey has some really poor 3D printing laws. It's very easy to get yourself into trouble in New Jersey with the 3D printer. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. Like I said, there's no income tax. The weather's nice. There's no shitty gun laws. I walk down the street. There's manatees and dolphins. So I think it was the right move so far.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was Jack Spirko on the Survival podcast. Once, he's always banging on get out of the city, and he was talking about you. He says, "Yeah, our buddy Sal and Unloose the Goose, he's moving." I think it was when you were actually moving.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I didn't realize you were up there. I know, John's down near me, Nicole's in Tennessee. Pete's in Georgia. I've interviewed Pete myself for this show. I really enjoyed his the work he does is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Pete
Great
Quinones,
stuff.
Free Man Beyond the Wall. He does good work there, and of course Jack Spirko. Who else is there? Oh yeah, Curtis Stone. Great work.
Curtis Stone, Xavier Hawk,
yes.
Nicole Sauce, John Bush, Jack Spirko, myself, and Pete Q. Yeah, it's a real honor to work with these guys. I've been a fan of a lot of the stuff that they've done before I even got involved with the whole Liberty scene. I think Spirko is brilliant. I think Pete does amazing work. John does amazing work. So does Nicole and Xavier. Like I said, it's just a real honor to work with everybody, and just to even be included in that group of folks. So it's a blast, and I think that Unloose the Goose, there's a real potential to sort of blow up. I think that podcast is really in the infancy stages right now, and that's why I think we're trying to develop a community and get people into this sort of Unloose the Goose mindset.
There's no try going on, Sal. It's happening. Communities are being formed. Communities are exploding on the Telegram channels, and on the Discord channels, the Freedom Cell networks. I mean, I'm in the middle of it all, and there are meetups. There are between all the groups going on, like geographically and online, solutions and innovation are this horrific situation that we knew was coming. We've known something was going to happen. We didn't know exactly how they were going to pull it. It's happening now. But what has pleasantly surprised me in this situation is how it is bringing out the strongest and the most resilient of this situation. We really are at a point where the slaves really are going to separate
Yeah.
and get culled, and the rest of the
Yeah.
people are not. And the networks, and I was going to say, I think Unloose the Goose, I agree with you completely, because what are you guys doing? You're focusing on solutions, okay? And there are so many innovative solutions out there, and people want solutions. People are saying, what can we do? And yes,
Right.
Spirko's podcast alone, man. I mean,
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
It's a wealth of knowledge. Spirko is sort of like the modern day Carl Hess, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that, you know, as we get sort of closer to the end game, and the final collapse becomes more obvious, then I think people will sort of stray from the idea of learning theory and stuff like that, and now they're going to want to put those theories into practice, and that's where Agorism and Unloose the Goose and all of the stuff that, you know, all of us do comes into play.
Excellent, Sal. Well, do you have any last thoughts, any final plugins before we wrap up?
No, not really. Like I said, you can check out 3D Printer Go Burr, BRR.com, and my personal site, saltheagorist.com. I'm on whatever social media app, whatever platform you prefer. I'm there, so you can give me a follow. But no, that's about it. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, cool. So you guys going live tomorrow night, Unleash the Goose? Is it Wednesdays?
Yes. Tomorrow night we have the late show, and I believe I'm going to be recording with Spirko tomorrow for the Survival podcast too.
Oh,
so
really?
check that
Cool.
out.
Yeah. I actually, it was one of the few podcasts that I've heard. I haven't missed an episode, you know, and I take notes, and I've got projects around my property that were inspired by ideas that he's thrown out there. I mean, he really is just a wealth of value. I really do appreciate him.
He's sort of, like I said, he's the modern day Carl Hess, because he ties together the theory and the practice. You know,
Exactly.
so I think he's a brilliant guy. He really is.
Yeah, I had the honor of meeting him last February at the Mother Earth News Conference. I did meet him because he lives not too far away from me, actually, on the other side of Fort Worth. I'm on the east side of Dallas, and he's just outside Fort Worth.
Very cool.
Cool. Sal, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Walking down the street where children play, for them it's just another day. The future's reflected in their parents' faces, who chose to stay on in this place where they were born, went to school, got married, and kids like their grandparents before them did. Got to escape, you know, before it's too late. Although today I could say that I really will miss the when Santa. Well, yeah, I was right. Knew what it was like when Santa.
You've been listening to truthconduit.com with Chris McMillan. Go to the subscribe page and sign up to get notifications of the latest posts. And check out the support page to help keep it going.
Yeah, I've got a friend in Jesus Christ. I've got a friend in Jesus Christ, and Krishna and Buddha and my bartender.
Have you found that your skills aren't matching up with the challenges ahead? Here are 19 essential skills for success that school never taught you. Get your free copy by following the link below or visit getautonomy.info/19skills.